nothingness, emergent nothingness, that there's no actual substance at this level except the thoughts. At this level, you're actually getting into the physical, which would be also on a human level and a biochemical level. Okay? Anybody that's studied hormones know there's infinite possibilities at every moment, and that's the sort of like this place. So this is where you take something that exists and make it into something else. And then the last level where it's becoming so rapid, the speed is coming, that to slow it down, it has to come very fast. So it actually becomes very rapid, and that's why our lifespan is so short. If our lifespan was longer, we couldn't produce, we couldn't be focused in one particular level. We don't have enough time to do this within one lifetime many times. So this is the physical. It's the level of making or doing, so they call that the kingdom, or they call it also the world of doing. And this is also the level of consciousness. So the choices you make manifest here in the physical, and the actions you take. And the actions you take become the answer to your question. And the answer is never about you, it's about all of consciousness, which is interconnected. So that's the world of creation. That's what I was heard as a kid over and over again. And I wondered about repair. I mean, because obviously this wasn't a perfect creation. And why things were broken. And the one that resonated with me was that image of the broken vessels shattering because they went down too fast, because it didn't go through the complete transformation. Okay? And that's part of the origin of our... Any questions about that? All right. I got lots of questions. And the great Kabbalists that I studied with, who I met in 1967, and I have a young couple with a child that are young, and they are followers of one of my teachers. They're very Hasidic Jews, and it seemed, it's kind of odd. So it's sort of like a connection. They never met him. And the fact that I knew him intimately is like they're basing their whole life off his teachings. So, yeah, and he told me the first time I met him was that I shouldn't bother looking for answers, just look for the right question. And that was very true. Because if you know your right question, then the direction you go will become obvious to you, even with all the obstacles that come about. So you always ask the questions. Okay, so then we started with the healing process, and then we looked at the physical, and we came to the healing process by the understanding the same thing that Isaac Luria talked about, who was a non-classical Kabbalist, and he was in Spot around the 1600s. It's the one that influenced me, but a lot of people feel he was wrong, a lot of Kabbalists. And the opposite in healing is when we start to say, well, how do we start repairing this process? How do we put the vessels together? How do we put the container? So if you have a physical ailment that prevents you from being whole, I mean, then your vessel, your body needs to be repaired. Because obviously, we're here, and to some degree, everybody's struggling with something. So everybody's in the repair process. And then it turns out, in our study of the human body, and the human nervous system, and the human hormonal system, that we're designed to keep re-regulating ourselves and keeping things in a functional level. It never occurred to anybody that there would be a species on this planet that would think it's smarter than creation and try to alter this regulatory system for its own selfish purposes. And so I think when we start looking at Tiferet and the healing process, that what we are dealing with is the struggle between involution and evolution. You know, it's very easy to get discouraged. I mean, I was listening late at night last night as I was trying to figure out, I always have trouble putting on the sheets, the fitting sheets. So every time I have to like do my laundry, somehow I can't get the rights and the left to fit exactly. So which side does it go on? So I keep trying until I finally get it right. So I had the TV on, I had Charlie Rosen, I had Nancy Pelosi on while this was going on. And I like Nancy Pelosi, and she was talking about, I mean, how distorted the politics is and how misunderstanding. I mean, she made a lot of sense. One of the things she's saying is that some of the experts that she's conferred with, and she's not optimistic with Republicans gaining more power, that will deal with climate change. And she said some of the experts said by 2012 it might be too late. You know, and so what is climate change? I mean, the climate's always changing. I'm not an expert in climate change. I've read a few books, but listen to people. So everything's always changing. So what has happened that makes it a big problem? It's the speed of change. So everything is imperfect. We've condensed time. Am I correct? Because you probably know more about it than I do, right?
Yeah, the interference is accelerated.
Yeah.
The rate at which change beyond which species can adapt to it.
Right.
And including humans.
Right.
Not just natural systems, social systems.
Right.
You can
All
see
life is
more broadly.
interconnected. And you know, I heard today, I think it was in Ohio, they interviewed somebody, and he said he doesn't want to hear about scientists. He said because climate change is a myth, and he says he knows this is a myth because his sources of information are twofold: Rush Limbaugh and the Bible. And he said the Bible says that this is all here for us. All the resources of the earth are for the dominion of mankind. So God wouldn't have created all these resources unless we were supposed to, it was here for us to exploit. And there's no science that says that we causing climate change. It's always has cycles. And I don't know, I read the Bible, and I don't remember saying anything like that. I mean, if you read it in the original and understand about the codes in the Bible, that it's really just a computer code, that it needs to be read on 5 levels. And hopefully tonight, as we finish this, we'll start to get into the 4th and 5th levels of reading it. And when you start reading it literally, because the Kabbalists always said that if man makes it to the next level, the holy books will be rewritten. They said it's the level that it's written now is the level of human consciousness at that time. They said the letters themselves, which are just geometry in motion, energy in motion, that's the 22 levels, which maybe I'll get an opportunity one day to teach, which is the letters are the connections of the motions that organize the 22, the 10s we wrote. Each letter has a different connection and a different opportunity. So they said when there's a change of consciousness of the species, when it becomes repaired, the whole Bible will be rewritten but the exact letters will be the same. So that's Kabbalah. So if the whole existence will change, but the blueprint stays the same, it's just the combinations of them, then that to me would be evolution, that would be completing the process. If that doesn't happen, we'll be going to an involution. And they also say, the Kabbalists, that this process that we're talking about has been aborted many times. That whoever came up with this intention, original intention, whether they want to call it God or creator or being capable of creating universes, has tried many times to get this right and given up, and the whole thing implodes and he starts all over again, or she starts over again. It's not gender.
Do you mean on the universal scale or the
Universal.
scale?
On the universal, the whole tree, the whole creation scale.
But on the scale of the whole universe, not just...
Universes,
Okay.
multiverses.
Mhm.
Interesting. That it wasn't a process that became right each time. Anyway, Michael.
Hey,
So, we're just reviewing everything, so you didn't miss anything.
thank you, I appreciate it.
So the idea is that this is not the first time around trying to get it right on every level. And that the Kabbalists would say that each one of us has tried many times to get it right. But the key is that each time we try to get it right, we have to abort an opportunity to express something that's never been expressed before. Therefore, the preciousness of life. So when you become in charge of people's health, and you're basing it on finances or your own self-interest, you're really forgetting what the whole purpose is of healing, relieving suffering, is to, so every law, everything that they talked about can be disregarded if a life is at stake. So the preciousness of enabling a soul to express its uniqueness supersedes every other law. That's how important it is. And I'm trying to remember, because the word is chaya, and it's interesting, because chaya also means, it's been translated as the life force, but chaya also can mean animal force. So it's not saying this is just human. And more science is showing us that there are, on this planet alone, there are species that are superior intelligences in certain ways than humans. So we're not the only intelligent. We're the most manipulative. But we're not always this, they're finding the whales and some really fascinating things. Some of you here know more about it than I do, but especially the dolphin studies and with the new stuff they've learned about dogs. I mean, it's really a lot of science coming in and changing our idea that damaging idea that this was all here for us, that we're supposed to have dominion, that I think was a bad translation. Just like the original sin was a bad translation, right? I think I talked about that, didn't I? Yeah. The snake can be translated as a whisper, which changes the whole thing. So, all right, so when we look at that, we looked at the four elements, which are, the idea is non-doing and healing, that you've done enough, you made such a mess, that if you need it healed, you gotta stop doing. And I noticed that with people that, when things are broken, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and thinking you can get a better result. So that's a time of stopping until you get retracked, you get refocused. And that's what the Kabbalists would say. So that's the time of meditation and prayer. And they said depression is a symptom of involution because it separates you from your source. So if someone is depressed, the treatment is always the same, is getting them involved with something that's not to do directly with them. And if somebody's depressed, the Kabbalists would say, you can't ask them to pray and meditate because they're depressed. So the treatment is always one of reintegrating them in the community and with the purpose and reconnection. So it becomes becoming part of things. Because depression usually is when you get locked into yourself.